Hello to everybody and welcome back to another video. In this one I'm talking about the work that I've done to my DJ Models 1361 and how I've changed it from being a mainline shunting locomotive to being a locomotive that I can use on my industrial layouts. So my thinking behind this project kind of came in three major waves. The first part is I was doing some looking into mainline locomotives that got sold off into industry, and I found it fascinating the 15XXs that had been sold into industry, specifically to the Coventry colliery. This proves how long ago I bought this model. It was before they were announced by Rapido. So that was in the back of my mind. I find mainline locomotives sold into industry fascinating anyway. The second part was the 813, which was, I believe it's a Hunslet design, that was Swintonised a little bit, eventually got sold into a colliery. Again, it's an ex-mainline locomotive sold into industry. And finally, the third thing was, I find the 1361's a fascinating looking loco. You know, it's quite clearly Swindon, with the way the cab is, especially the bunker. But you've got the Allen valve gear, but then you've also got the Dean style smokebox door. But then you've also got saddle tanks, so it's all a bit of a hodgepodge. You can tell it was an advanced redesign rather than one that was designed from the ground up by Swindon. So all these things kind of came together when Kerno Model Rail Centre was selling these off for 70 quid. There was a bit of a price war with these and the Helgen ones that were being sold through rails, and it just meant that for a while these were really cheap. So 70 quid for one of these was really cheap at the time, and is now as well. Obviously, had I known, DJ Models would have gone bump and DJ Models prices would have increased. Maybe I wouldn't have done what I've done, but I've done it and I'm really happy with the way the model looks. Speaking of which, why don't we get into that now? First thing I did was apply acrylic wash all over the model. It was just a light grey wash that was wiped off with a cotton bud just to get that initial weathering layer in. This was then built on using weathered black, which was also used to completely repaint the smokebox door assembly and whole smokebox, including the chimney. This was then built on using rust weathering powders and a cocktail stick. The rust weathering powders coming from Tamir and Humbrol. Again, building up the weathering on the tanks and the cab, I used weathered black, roof grime and a bit of frame dirt in the same way that I used the initial acrylic wash, just wiping it away, getting it stuck in the recesses, a tiny bit of streaking being introduced as well. At this point I also went underneath the running board and began to apply the weathering to the frames and wheels as well. NCB decals were added on one side to show that this is an NCB locomotive, however it was left free on the other side. This is because I wanted the option for the locomotive to run on non-colliery based layouts. It also kept its cab side numbers, much like the 15XXs did in colliery service. I believe the 813 did as well, actually, thinking about it. I also weathered the buffer beams and buffers, again using the same paints I've previously mentioned. Weathered black, roof grime and a bit of frame dirt. A Model U figures in the cab, although he is probably going to be pulled out, so I can put him in something with a bit more of an open cab, and a Dapol figure will be dropped in. And Model U, DJM and RT Models parts have been used to detail the buffer beams, the running boards and around the smoke box. So that's about all I've done to the model. It is a really nice model. It's taken the weathering really well. I'm really quite proud of it. The roof is not the best in the world, and I'll probably go back to it at some point, and the underframe needs some work as well. But we may as well get into the fictional history now, I think. Built in 1910, the 1363 was built for work in Devon. It was moved to Pastures New in 1952, where it was moved to the Heapton Colliery network, where it works as a shunter, banker and trip worker. Though a useful member of the post-war fleet, it was laid up in 1964 with boiler issues. In this world, 1363 isn't actually preserved, and quite sadly is scrapped on site. So that's it for the work I've done on this model. If you have watched all the way through this video, I think it's time for maybe a little teaser of what might come out next on the channel. So this is the locomotive I'm working on as of now. I know. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!